got a pair of related questions to each other, not to the last thing. So Lonnie Oglesby wants to know, does hemming a wool kilt affect the swing? If so, is it significant enough to ruin the swag of an 8-yard kilt? And Matt Horn wants to know, how much of a hem is typically on the bottom of a tweed kilt?
Sure.
Interesting that he specifically called out tweed kilts.
Yes. I would say he probably called out tweed kilts because most tweed, not like tartan tweed, a lot of times they're actually woven with tuck and selvage, but most tweed kilts have a lino selvage and they are needed to be hemmed, or it's a herringbone pattern that runs the wrong direction, so they have to be spliced multiple times and then therefore hemmed across the bottom because it's a cut edge.
And you can't just request to not have it hemmed.
Yes. If you must hem a kilt, I would say the ideal hem in a kilt is 1.5 to 2 inches, somewhere in there. If you get
Goldilock Zone.
It's the Goldilock Zone, exactly. If you have a kilt that is a 1/2 inch too short and you need to hem it, nope, don't hem it, just hike it up. If it's 3 inches, 4 inches too long, don't just hem it unless you're in a pipe band and you want to make sure you can drop the hem at some point later on. I would say cut it and hem it if it's 4 inches. I wouldn't just hem 4 inches for yourself forever. There's a little bit of a Goldilocks zone with hemming a kilt. It's never ideal. Does it affect? It depends on the weight of the cloth, the type of cloth, and a bunch of different factors. But does it affect an 8-yard kilt? Yes and no. If it is let's say we're talking about 13-ounce or 16-ounce worsted wool tartan cloth.
Which is what most kilts are made from.
Most kilts are made from, correct. So in that instance, if you hem a kilt a 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, just a little bit, and you just have to hem it up just because it's a touch too long, what ends up happening is the very, very bottom of the kilt, you are doubling the thickness. Anytime you hem it, a kilt, you're doubling the thickness. And if it's just that much, it ends up, the pleats tend to want to kick out at the bottom.
It's bubbling a little bit.
Yeah, it's bubbling. It's not bringing it, further back up into the kilt. It's just a tiny bit.
You're not just doubling your pleasure and doubling your fun.
Yeah, the double mint gum thing. I get it. No, but the pleats at the bottom tend to kick out across the back of the kilt, especially if it's a 16-ounce, because it may not want to hang flat, and you have to really, really get in there with the iron and pressure the heck out of it to get it to lay flat. So
beat it like it owes you money.
Exactly. Across the like a redheaded stepchild. Across the back of the kilt, you want it to lay flat. So from the bottom of the fill to the very, very bottom, it should be a nice flat appearance. And what ends up happening if it's only a 1/2 inch or 3/4 inches is it tends to kick out kind of on the bottom edge. Going to the opposite extreme of like a 4-inch hem, so it's a really, really, really deep hem, it's too much. And it has like a weird bubble at the bottom of the kilt.
It's creating a lot of unnecessary weight in your kilt too.
Yep. So the Goldilocks zone is 100% the 1.5 to 2 inch kind of zone where it's just it's coming up enough that it wants to lay flat. There's enough travel back up inside the pleats that it's not trying to have all the pleats kick open, but it's not going so far up the back of the kilt that it's too much fabric or feels weird.
And notably, wow, I completely lost my train of thought.
That was 100% notable. I am better for noting that. So yeah, I would absolutely say. Go ahead.
I remember where I was going to go with that. Notably, if you're going to hem it up 4 inches or more, you're changing other choices that were made about that kilt, like the fell length. So your fell length is generally about 1/3 of your overall length of the kilt. So if I've set that way and you hem it up 4 inches, the bottom of the fell is going to be much lower than is ideal.
But Ian,
relative to your body.
But Ian, why does the bottom of the fill matter for the back of the kilt? So if I had a 24-inch kilt and I'm 6 foot tall and I pass it down to my son, who I have to hem 4 inches off of, why does that 8-inch fill, which is 1/3 the length of 24, matter for my son?
So you basically what you want is that hem to end right at the widest part of your body. So for somebody whose hips are larger than their waist, which isn't everybody, in fairness, it's hitting basically right at the widest part of your buttocks and then dropping straight down from there. So you can get some weirdness to how the kilt hangs if you don't have that quite dialed in.
If it goes, yes.
Yeah.
And ultimately, if the fill, which is the sewn down portion, goes from the top of the kilt to the widest part of your butt. If you shorten the bottom because the person is shorter, then let's say that 8-inch fill should really be a 7-inch fill. Now it's going beyond the widest part of your butt. When you sit down, your butt expands a little bit and it goes out under the widest part of the fill. If the fill goes down beyond the widest part of your butt, when you're sitting and expanding, you're putting too much pressure on the bottom of those pleats, and what will tend to happen is you're going to get pop stitches, and it's going to rip the bottom of the fill, and the pleats will kind of tear up. Or the other weirdness that it'll look is, as you're wearing the kilt, it's going to look like a mini skirt that hugs your body, and it hugs it weird because it's kind of like outlining not just going to the widest part of you and going straight down. It's going to look like it's kind of like hugging your butt, which can look weird, and it's prone to split the pleats more because it's going down beyond the bottom. Yep.
Notably, though, it's not the end of the world to have a hem. In the case you're describing, specifically the father handed down to the son, if you think that son is going to continue to grow and you're going to want to let that hem out and he can still wear it,
Sure.
It's a good temporary solution.
Yeah.
Or if you got a great deal on like a $800, 8-yard hand-stitched kilt on eBay for $80 and you spent, a small amount to have it hemmed, you got a good deal out of the whole thing. So and I wouldn't panic too much about the swish and the sway and the swag of it all, to Lonnie's original question. You still got a good deal and didn't spend $800.
Yeah, and there are some weights of fabric, touching on the weight kind of thing. There are some weights or types of fabric that will hem better than others. So on the hell no, we won't go. And I shouldn't say that way. On the more difficult to hem are tweeds, especially tweeds that are a little softer.
Spongier.
Spongier, like Martin Mills tweeds or like the Loch Heron jacket suiting fabric kind of tweeds, or jacket fabric kind of tweeds, which are a little spongier and don't hold a pleat or a crease quite as nice. They're a little bit more difficult to hem. On the other end of the scale, 11-ounce fabric. If you have an 8-yard kilt and it's you want bill of the borders and it's only available in 10-ounce or 11-ounce fabric from Loch Heron, then I would absolutely say a hem is not necessarily a bad thing because it adds a little bit more weight to the bottom of the kilt to help with the swing. And if you look at like Highland dancers and that kind of thing, a lot of times dancers' kilts are lighter weight fabric for heat issues, but they are also hemmed because they want a little bit more weight to the bottom of the kilt, and that helps with the bouncing of the pleats.
And notably, you might need to have a hem on 11-ounce cloth sometimes because it doesn't always have a tuck-in selvage that is appropriate for the bottom edge of a kilt, so you do hem up.
Yeah, that's true as well.
So sometimes it might not be ideal, but it is the better of the options.
lesser of two evils.
Sometimes with PV kilts, we do have to hem them because the edges come in just in a way that they aren't usable as the bottom edge of a kilt.
Yeah.
Either because it was just made with you call it
Lino selvage. Yeah, Lino edge.
So it kind of has a little bit of a fringed type of a look to it, which isn't ideal for the bottom of a kilt. So we do hem them up. I have a PV kilt that's hemmed up, and it actually doesn't bother me. Like I'm a little bit of a snob about hems, and I don't like them, and I don't want a kilt with one. But when I put it on, I don't think about it. It doesn't bother me.
You think about it while you're putting it on, but as soon as you put it on, you forget about it.
Yeah. Or sometimes just the edge wasn't made successfully, and we'd end up having to hem it.
Yeah. If your kilt is a hand-me-down kilt, and the hem is a little bit longer or a little bit shorter than what we have described as ideal, do not let perfection be the enemy of the good. The thing you have to remember is get the kilt on, get out, and wear it. Period. End of story. If you like this content, please consider subscribing to our channel. It would help us defeat the YouTube algorithm. Thanks, guys.